right, welcome to another episode of the Business Hustle Podcast. I am very fortunate here to have my next guest, Adam McCluskey. Is that right?
That's it. You
All
nailed
right,
it.
Cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself. So you're a physical therapist?
That's correct.
All right, so tell us a little bit more about kind of your day job and what you do, and then we'll get into the hustle.
Yeah, so I'm a physical therapist. I actually just graduated with my doctorate in physical therapy December of this past year, so 2017. And went to school out in Southern California for that. And originally in North Carolina, moved out for grad school, just moved back here and started working at a private practice, kind of a sports orthopedic clinic here in Raleigh.
Cool. So obviously, what kind of drew me to you is that you have an Instagram page where you do a lot of video content and stuff like that, and you built up a little bit of following, which is pretty cool. And we had a lunch conversation probably about a month ago, and it was just really intriguing. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that and the history behind that and how you got to where kind of you are today, because I think that'd be helpful for a lot of business owners. So talk a little bit how that page got started, how you came up with the idea. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been kind of a wild ride, kind of just adapting on the fly a lot. But I guess originally how it started, so before PT school, I was a personal trainer, strength coach, that type of thing, and was doing that for about 4 years before going back to school. And kind of once I figured out PT was where I wanted to go, kind of went all in on that and did grad school and stuff. But kind of midway through school, so about a year and a half in, I was just thinking about all the stuff that I'd learned, kind of a new perspective of seeing the body, how we move, how we exercise, and I couldn't help, my roots are kind of in that, exercise performance world. Right. And so my brain was always going back to that, and it's like, man, I wish I knew a lot of this stuff, like when I was doing fitness training, personal training, that sort of thing. Like so much of this would have been useful, like my clients would have gotten better results, that type of thing. So that kind of got me thinking, and the original idea was like, how can I kind of leverage my knowledge that I'm getting now, the knowledge I'll continue to get, and kind of bring it back to where my roots are in the fitness world. So, can this stuff that I'm learning be valuable, across, domains and not be so divided up?
Right.
Because there is a lot of carryover there. So that was kind of the original idea, kind of using that avenue. And so, so that was when I kind of thought, man, if I could just market myself to personal trainers and things like that, kind of knowing I had that background. Initially, what was funny is I was going to kind of do a little bit of science-based stuff and other kind of businessy type stuff, because I had an interest in that and how to market yourself as a trainer and for business, and to use this knowledge to do that. But what I found out as I started putting stuff out kind of half and half on those was, that market was already saturated with people, how to market yourself as a personal trainer, how to start a business in that.
So initially you were going to be like a B2B, you were going to help other personal trainers learn how to brand themselves as a personal trainer.
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, and kind of and what was going to separate me was, the education, the doctorate of physical therapy, that type of thing, knowledge of movement mechanics, and how to morph that into marketing yourself. Then as I started putting stuff out, I just noticed a trend of people gravitating more towards the movement stuff, kind of the more sciencey, that sort of type of thing, more so than the business stuff. And so, it's been kind of a theme going forward, is kind of noticing what's clicking and adapting.
So how quickly did you notice that? I mean, was it the first month or?
Yeah, so it was funny. The first few posts that I put up, I did, so mainly my thing is mostly on Instagram. I was trying to do Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, and it just it spreads too thin, and it just didn't have carryover. And so,
I'm going through that same thing, right? Because that's one thing that I'm learning with this podcast and stuff like that is it takes time to post to Instagram and post it appropriately. It's easy to put it in and I just have it go to Facebook but to have it appropriately tagged and formatted and all that stuff for the different platforms takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it really does. And I think I learned that early on. And I think one thing that, I don't know if I read this somewhere or just figured out the hard way, but someone said you've got to respect the platform you're on. Mm-hmm. And I think that was key for me, is you can't just make a blanket piece of content and throw it on 3 different platforms and expect it to do well.
Right.
You have to go in with the intention of making it for a certain platform, know that audience. How do they behave on Instagram versus Facebook versus Twitter? And if you throw just, blanket content on each one, hoping it'll do the same, it's not going to.
Yeah.
And so basically I would put stuff on Instagram and get comments and interactions and stuff like that. And it was really cool. And I put the same thing on Facebook and it would get 2 likes and 25 people would see it when it would get 1,000 likes on Instagram. Like, well, why am I going to keep doing the Facebook stuff if Instagram is where the people are at, where it's responding? Yeah. So a little bit of a tangent there, but that's just been kind of the experience there with the social media. And so, yeah, it was pretty quickly on, I realized like,
you've got something.
Yeah. And it was mostly with using the knowledge that I had, because again, that was the piece that wasn't already, that piece of the market's not already saturated.
Yeah. And
so that was kind of the new refreshing piece to bring to it. And so once I kind of realized that, I just kind of started running with it.
So like, tactically speaking, how did you learn how to do all of this? Is it just self-taught? Like, did you have an interest in social media before you started this? Or was it just kind of like you saw this was where you needed it to be and so you kind of figured it out? Tactically, like, how did you figure all this out?
Yeah, I mean, it had always been kind of, I've always leaned towards something entrepreneurial, and social media was just always kind of fascinating. Any time you hear those things of like, how to make money without leaving your house, it's always some kind of like plug other people's products and do all this and do all that. And it's always something online, right? And, and so that was kind of an avenue that I found. And honestly, kind of to answer your question a while back, like how I even got started with it was, I loved PT school. It was great. It taught me a lot of good things, but PT school is it's a very generalized degree. I mean, you've got to be trained to work in the hospital, work with stroke patients, and work with an outpatient, more like athletic population.
Right.
So there's some semesters that are a little heavier towards the interests that I had, and there were other semesters that were very heavy towards things I had no interest in.
Right.
So it was almost my outlet. I knew that I wanted to go more in the sports orthopedic world. That was the plan from day one. And so I was in these semesters where it was like, all hospital, geriatric, that type of thing. And so I needed an outlet. I didn't want to lose my skills. I wanted to keep progressing, getting sharper, getting better, keep learning. And so I just kind of jumped on social media. I was like, well, if I can put stuff out there, keep myself sharp, and hopefully help other people out, and then that'll be a win-win for everybody. And so it was just kind of cool, like even through as some semesters kept going, and I just kept basically just stayed consistent with it. And it was just cool to see it catch on, and you'd get feedback from people across the world like, hey, that was awesome, this really helped me, this and that. It kind of keeps you going, and then it just built from there. So it's been kind of adapt along the way and keep at it. But it's been kind of a up and down journey, but just consistency was kind of the key.
What was the mistake you made early on?
Yeah, first was thinking it would happen very fast, and it would be very methodical, and I could plan out from day one, know exactly how it would go. And I guess just the tough thing was knowing what strengths to go on it all in on, because in my head there was an idea of this is what I think people are going to want from me, and this is what they should want, and then there's kind of the reality of what people actually want from you.
Yeah. And
the cool thing is that it seems like, based on the recent growth, there is something that people are responding to, that people enjoy and appreciate. It just was a little different from day one what I thought it would be. And so I don't know that it was necessarily a mistake.
Just a big learning curve.
Just a big learning curve.
I mean, the market is the market, right? Like, your audience is your audience, and you can either try and force them to consume what you want them to consume, or you can create content that they want to consume.
Yeah.
And you're going to be much more successful if you're creating content they want to consume versus trying to force them to consume the content in your head that you're like, this is what they need to consume.
Right. Yeah, and that was a huge thing. I kind of thought, my original thought was I'd have the website, and I would write blog posts, and I would just use social media to, drive traffic back to the website.
Yeah.
And I guess what was really crazy to see was that day is not necessarily over. I think there's certain sectors where that still works, and there's people who do it successfully. But the day that it is now is people use social media as a primary. People don't like to leave social media.
Yep.
They're on it. It's on their phones. It's easily accessible. I realized that going out of Instagram or Facebook and going to a separate site, to a blog, and reading a whole post, that's not understanding the platform you're using.
Yeah.
So I was on Instagram where everything is, well, it was, less than a minute, but now it's a minute, right? So everyone on there is conditioned for fast, 1 minute.
Yep.
And then you're expecting them to leave your website and go read a blog for 10 minutes. Like that was kind of naive on my part.
Yeah.
And so it was, I guess you could call it a mistake, but it's more of a shift. And I think that was the big thing I had to learn was I've got to be willing to shift. Like I had this thought of it's going to be all the blog, and then I'll have different opt-ins on the website and that sort of thing. And, some of that's still in the works, but the primary, the bread and butter is the social media, and just kind of learning just to go 100% in on that.
When did you know, like what milestone were you like, okay, this is going to work, this is going to be long-term, this is going to be a good thing?
Yeah, so I guess it's a crazy beast, social media, and like it can be real fickle, and I think it's why people drop out. But you put up 4 or 5 posts that you think you just pour your heart and soul into, and you think they're just going to crush it, and it's crickets, and it's like a few people. But I kind of stuck in there, and then I would make a post and put something up, and there was one that it was early on. It gave me like 800 followers and 90,000 impressions on there, and it would just it kind of freaked me out. Honestly, I was like, I don't know if I'm
ready for this.
I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm smart enough. I don't know if I'm ready enough to for that kind of publicity. And and then just kind of talking to a few people and just different stuff, and kind of just reassuring myself this is an opportunity. You know what I mean? This is obviously there's something working. It's be something really cool that could happen with this. But the thing was just to kind of stay consistent with it.
How'd you get over that fear of being inadequate?
I mean, I don't know. I guess you get over it. I think it's just kind of changed. You kind of just move, your comfort zone gets a little bit bigger each time. And I guess the key is to keep stepping out of it. I guess my perception of what a lot of publicity is kind of changed, because there's always someone who has more, more followers, more likes, that sort of thing. But I guess it's been just kind of understanding and being okay with that I don't know everything. But, putting things out there that I feel are useful, that other people are, telling me are useful. And just, I guess, getting that feedback from people that hey, this has really helped me do this. And it's kind of at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's really it's why I chose physical therapy and not some other thing. It's deep down, there's a desire to help other people, right? And just hopefully that I know something that could help someone else. And, and I guess it kind of came down to, it's not really about me coming off as the smartest person in the room, more so that this is a way that I do know things that could help people.
Right. And
what's a way that I can share that with as many people as possible and help someone who I would in no other world have contact with. And I think kind of having that mindset of taking it out of, they're looking at me like it's all about me and me being smarter than someone else. That's just a game that'll really ruin you and throw you off track.
Yeah.
And just kind of bringing it back to what the whole point of it is. And the whole point was, the internet and social media, it's literally unlimited. There's unlimited people you can reach. And, if 10 people get better because of it, then I don't know, to me it's worth it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. How did you get comfortable? Because a lot of your content, or probably, most, especially on Instagram, most of it is video content, right? Mm-hmm. So how did you get comfortable, and we're going to kind of go down the rabbit hole of video creation and stuff like that, but how did you get comfortable being on camera? Because that's been a hard thing for me, right? And finally I just had to say, screw it, especially with podcasts, my voice is too nasally, I'm fat, all these different things. You go through all these different things in your head of why I can't be on camera. But finally, for me, it just got to the point where I was just screw it. I'm just going to do it. I don't care. What was that for you, being comfortable on camera and being comfortable, putting yourself out there and being the arrogant guy who's filming himself at the gym? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's true. I think, honestly, it was more of one of those things where it was almost out of necessity. There was ideas that I had that I wanted to film and I wanted to get out there. I think that's still kind of a thing. I don't like, making like a big scene of trying to film things, you know what I mean? Especially at the gym, which it's gotten a little easier recently. Like I can use like the clinic and stuff to film, but I still kind of don't love, I know there's a lot of people that do like Instagram stories and stuff and like, throwing it on selfie mode and just, giving all kinds of stories. Like that's still not really my thing. Like I have a lot of stuff that like I want to say, but it's still like, that's not my natural tendency. Is like, oh, let me hop on camera and give a speech here. I think I got comfortable with doing the exercises, and I guess I would just focus on making sure form was right and I could demonstrate it and all that stuff. I kind of just take myself out of that moment a little bit, but it kind of just came with repetition, I guess, and just I think it was a little bit of realizing that this whole thing had a little momentum. Kind of helped out with my confidence a little bit, but something in the future that I still want to get better with is talking and getting on camera and that sort of thing. It's still like kind of a little bit of a barrier that I want to get better at, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. That it's just a matter of, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about this awesome responsibility that you have. You're getting traction and people are looking to you and stuff like that, and you just kind of almost have to keep providing them content. Right. And so you kind of have to keep pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, to keep providing valuable content for your followers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How do you handle criticism?
Yeah, I think early on, especially when I was starting out, there was times where I would get feedback and like criticism from, comments, and there's trolls everywhere, right? So, I would get feedback and I would take it like personally. I wouldn't, display it on like the comments because it was it's a professional page. I'm going to respond professionally. Not get into some war on the comment section, right. But there were some times where I would post things and especially early on when I guess the doubt level was higher. It's kind of like branching into unknown territories and like kind of doubting yourself. Do I really know enough? And so then you'd get a comment and it's like that self-fulfilling prophecy, like, oh, there it is. There's the sign that I don't know enough, and because, Jim King 89 had, told me that my form's off or something like that, and it's like, I don't know. And so you kind of like, early on, those definitely rattled me. And I would like, there would be times where I'd get comments and like, I couldn't get my mind off of for hours, and so it's much less like that now. And honestly, I don't really know. I can't tell. Maybe it's repetition. Maybe it's just more experience.
It's probably muscle that you build up. In all honesty, like a I don't know, virtual muscle, but it's that habit that you build up. That the more you get it, the more you learn how to deal with it. Because if not, it'll just crush you. You either have to rise above it or get sunk by it. Yeah,
and I guess the other thing too is I've kind of, after doing it for a while, and obviously I'm not far along out of school, but we've done clinical rotations and then being practicing since February this year officially. Like you get repetitions and you get like that it works. Like the things that I'm putting out there, like I know firsthand in person, like these things work. You get more confident. And then once you kind of build that base and that what you're putting out is good content, and those things start to rattle you less. And then again, going back to the goal here is not to come across as the smartest person on Instagram. It's to come across as someone who generally wants to provide info that helps without an ulterior motive.
Yeah. How did you figure out the technical stuff of doing videos?
Yeah, they were, I started out with, my phone comes with iMovie, and I would, take some video, and it was nothing fancy at all. I would edit it on my phone, just throw some text over it and put it up there. Started out with really basic stuff. I guess I kind of realized that, when I started and things started progressing, videos started to get a little bit more engagement, and so I started to shift towards video. And then I guess you just kind of, I kind of just messed with different apps, different, video softwares. I think to this day, for technical stuff, like equipment and everything, even till very today, I've used, I've probably spent $15.
Really?
Yeah, so I bought a $10 tripod for my phone
Mm-hmm.
on Amazon, and then I spent $4 or $5 on apps for like editing. And that's pretty much the sum total, honestly, of all the overhead of the whole thing.
So do you do any paid ads, or is it all organic?
No, I've never spent $1 on
Really?
Instagram. It just, I guess in my mind, it kind of felt like, and not saying anybody can do it differently.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not saying
Yeah,
I
it's just
won't
how you
do,
did
I
it.
won't do, not saying I won't do sponsored ads later, but it's just kind of how I approached it was, if it gets shared, if it's good enough to get shared and get more, because there were a few posts that got, seen by 90,000 people. So if I can continue to do that, then it'll take care of itself and the followership will grow. Sure, it would probably happen a lot faster. But I don't know, maybe it was kind of like a challenge to myself. I wanted to kind of look at it and say, okay, I've got this many followers or whatever, and I want to know deep down that it's because someone shared it enough, or it got shared enough, it had enough engagement that, I don't know, say it went viral, but enough people, that they followed because they found it and they wanted to know more, not because an ad popped up.
Well, and I think that's the thing with like paid ads and stuff like that is they can mask a lot of mistakes and stuff like that, because if you're just putting a bunch of money behind it. But I think what you're doing is really smart, that you're building the foundation, and then down the road, if you wanted to throw some money behind it because you wanted to accelerate the growth, you probably could. But you're building that solid foundation now of knowing what works, what doesn't, what your followers want, and you're kind of doing all of that organically, which I think is really, really smart.
Yeah, and I think going back to that too was, and again, this is all my experience,
Yeah.
and it's not saying that this is the only way to do it,
Well,
and things like
well,
that.
that's why I wanted to have you on, because I wanted somebody just to give their experience of the process and the journey that they went through. And I understand. I think a lot of people listening and seeing this will understand. Like, there's 1,000 different ways to be successful, and this is just one person's way of being successful, but it's your way.
Yeah, and I think a few of the things I've had people kind of reach out, through the Instagram world, because it's funny. It's this kind of market's starting to get more and more crowded,
Yeah.
And so everybody that is into fitness, rehab, anything is trying to make a page to get on there, and I think people have called and kind of asked for advice, like how can I grow my page, that type of thing. And one thing that keeps me that I love about it is it's market driven. People like what they like, and if the content is good enough and it's interesting enough to people, they'll engage with it, and they'll follow you, and more people will see it. And so that's what I love about it. There's no magic bullet. You can't spend. It's not like if I spend $2,000 on it, then I'll get 100,000 followers and I'll be famous, and then I'll be good enough, right? It's more of a, it's a challenge to you of can you provide the most high quality content that helps the most people, then that comes. And so it's not about all these other things are accessories, they're it's not like that's the missing link. And so some people ask, if I've got an extra $1,000 to spend, should I buy a camera and Final Cut Pro? I don't know, maybe you can, but that's not going to be the thing that does it for you. And so it's just kind of one of those things where it's always, I guess everyone wants to, like, what other thing can I do other than just to put your head down, get better, put out the work, and stay consistent? Like, other than those things, what can I do to grow a page? When it's really like that's it.
Talk more about that.
Yeah, so
the grind, because I know, because I'm starting in this world right now, right, with this podcast and stuff like that, and I'm learning it is 100% about consistency. It's not about the type of microphones you have. It's not about the type of camera you have or what program you're using. And for the longest time, that was me. It was like, I can't do it because I don't have the right camera. I don't have the right editing software. I don't have this. I don't have that. And finally, and we were talking before we started here, like, I've got 2 iPhones, a borrowed soundboard, like just a random assortment of stuff. And it's not the best, but it works, right? Like, the iPhone that's on you has like a little spot in the lens that is like a dark spot inside of, but it just works. And that's the thing I'm learning, is that it's all about, it's not about the equipment, it's not even really about your knowledge, it's about the consistency. So talk a little more about that.
Yeah, I guess I've had the page going for, a little year and a half, something like that. At the beginning, kind of before I knew that Instagram was 100% the avenue I wanted to go,
Yeah.
I was probably less consistent than I am now, but once I kind of figured out that was the path, it's been pretty consistent from there on out. And you keep putting content out. I think it's more of you have to have a goal with it all. So I think you can't, even the most disciplined person, if you don't enjoy putting the content out, you don't enjoy what you're talking about, one, it won't seem authentic, it'll never get any traction.
Yep.
And then two, you're just gonna burn out, And so I think one is it's gotta be something you're passionate about. And two, it's gotta just be, you've gotta know that there's gonna be extra time. Like the hard thing is with Instagram especially is when you're putting out content, if you're doing it the right way and not trying to just do, follow somebody, then unfollow them, or try and get enough where you start plugging other people's stuff and then it just comes off as a spam account. As long as if you're putting in like the long term, the long game, it's a grind and you're not seeing any monetary kickback from it, and it's like that can wear on you after a while if you don't have a really clear vision of what the future looks like with it. And so, I think that's kind of where it was, is I knew that this was something special. It's something that got me excited. It's something that I love talking about. I could talk about it 24 hours a day, And so that kind of perfect storm where there was an outlet where people wanted to hear about it. It's something that I want to talk about. It kind of made it where the work was worth it and didn't really feel like it. I mean, at the clinic at Holt, we do the 4 10-hour shifts, which the way it is set up for me, I'm kind of out of the house from 7 a.m., 7 p.m. So those are long days and I'm not there, but every that day of the week I'm off. Probably 8 hours of those days I'm working on the business. I'm working on Instagram posts, what the next schedule is, creating content, filming, coming up with ideas, reading research that I'm going to base my posts up on. Half of my Saturdays are filled up with that. And so, at the end of the day, if I tallied how much I'm actually working versus leisure, it's 60, 70 hours at least. And so, sometimes, everyone's like, what are you doing your day off? And I don't really have much of an answer because I'm doing all this stuff. Right. And, I think people think that you go to the gym, you film yourself doing a set and you throw it on Instagram and the rest happens for itself. It's it takes a lot of planning on the back end, and to be consistent with that over time is hard, but it kind of builds on itself. You see some reward from it. People are like, oh, this is super helpful. I've been doing this the wrong way my whole life. I tried this and now this is a lot better. that type of thing, that it's actually helping, it's actually working, and you're reaching people across the world. And that's kind of keeps that fire alive a little bit.
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm kind of in a similar situation with this, is that, we're here on a Sunday morning recording this podcast because it's where our schedule lined up and stuff like that. And I think I talked in a prior podcast, just about the time commitment for, this is going to be, probably a 40-minute podcast, 45-minute podcast between you and I. And it's going to take me probably, 6 to 10 hours to edit it, to get it all condensed, and then get the clips that come off it. And I'm not even doing all the stuff I should be doing, right? This is just kind of, but it's just a big time commitment. And the thing that I talk to, probably the number one question I get when people ask about my podcast is, how do you make money?
Yeah.
Right? How are you going to make money? And my response to that, and people just don't understand it, is that having an audience, you can monetize it in 1,000 different ways, right? Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, and I want to get your take on this, in my opinion, the longer you can go without monetizing it, the faster you're going to build your audience and the more loyal they're going to be. And there's a guy, I don't know if you follow him, Gary Vaynerchuk, but he has the jab, 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 right hook, right? Give, and then ask.
Right.
And so, the more you delay monetizing your audience, the faster it's going to grow, and then the more leverage you're going to have with them when you do end up monetizing it, right? It's kind of the best example I have is kind of like a Roth IRA or a retirement account, right? Yeah. You keep putting money in it, and if you start withdrawing money as soon as you can, it's not going to grow as big, but you don't want to die with all your money in the account, right? You know, so it's like that fine balance.
Yeah, that's true.
Of when you start withdrawing from that. You know, because if you had started monetizing when you had 1,000 followers, you probably wouldn't have gotten to where you are as quick as you did.
Right.
So talk a little bit about your experience with that, and you know, have people like approach you to to do sponsored content and stuff like that, and talk a little bit about your philosophy with that.
Yeah, I think I don't remember the exact number, maybe 10,000, something like that was when I got more of those requests. But yeah, I guess, and again, kind of touched about before, was having my goal for the page and the whole, I guess, business, if you know, per se. It's not a brick and mortar.
That's a business.
You know, it's more of a, right now it's a brand, and as it develops, it can become, you know, different streams, different business outlets. But yeah, I think the vision long term was to create, you know, like a brand where people know me and trust me with my content. And then, so I just saw that if I start plugging other people's stuff, literally that puts the control outside. It takes the control away from me. Yeah. Now, someone is associated me with someone else's product or someone else's brand, and then I've got no control over what they do, and the things with them go south, and it reflects on me, and I've done all this work, and I've just tanked myself, you know. And so in my mind, it seems like, okay, yeah, someone's going to offer me $500 to $1,000 to promote their whatever product,
right?
You know, if I don't believe in it 100%, or even if I did, I'm still a little hesitant to, because I'm now putting this brand that I put hours and hours and hours into, and am proud of the product of it. Now I'm attaching it to them for a quick $500 to $1,000. Yeah. You know, when it could tank the whole thing, and who knows what it could be at the end. And so for me, it just seemed, it's tempting that someone shoots you a message and offers you the cash with that, but I think it goes back to knowing what the whole purpose of it is in general. And I think if you have that mindset, if you started an Instagram page today, like, oh, I just want to get it to where someone will pay me $1,000 to promote their thing and I'll be done. It's going to take you a long time to get any followership where someone would pay you that much, just because your account's going to seem inauthentic, because your root is just making a quick buck. Yeah. But people know, and that's the beauty of social media too, is people know authenticity there too, and they know if you're just trying to get money out of them or if you're actually trying to help. And I think that's been a big thing of it. And so, yeah, I think if you come in with the idea of just trying to monetize and make a few bucks, it's going to really short sell you. But I don't know. I just think I've talked with on another podcast I was on. I get really excited about this because so me and you know, there are a bunch of pages and accounts that are bigger than I am, but there's a lot of people I've been able to network with, and people I call friends that, you know, do something similar to me, is post content on Instagram, and they're in the rehab world. And the thing I've been amazed at is people actually shop for healthcare on social media. And it literally, when I realized that, I would put a post up and I would get 10, 15 DMs about someone like, hey, my shoulder's been hurting when I do this. Do you think it could be this? And people are literally using social media to try and diagnose their problems. But they're looking, they know that, well, one, it's crazy, and it was mind-blowing to me, but it's also super exciting, because I think the healthcare system, especially in the part that I'm in, it has a lot of parts that are very broken. Yeah. And I think the whole system of, if you've got an ache and pain, it's musculoskeletal, that, you know, your shoulder hurts when you work out, but, you know, no traumatic injury, anything like that. The fact that you would go through the system and get a $2,000 MRI and then wait for 2 weeks to get that, and then pay, you know, whatever outrageous copay it is, and then you end up in physical therapy, when physical therapy could have been the outlet, most likely the outlet that you need to go in the first place. Right. And if it was something more, we can send you out to there. Yep. So, total tangent, that's my soapbox. But the cool thing about it was people are actually using Instagram, and they haven't gone in the pipeline yet, as I like to call it, the pipeline that, you know, shoots you through and tells you probably have something worse than you actually do. They're actually using social media to find people like myself, other people that are providing info and content, and they're asking about that. And so I think there's another part of the healthcare system that's yet to be tapped, and I don't know how it will fully be tapped, but using the internet and healthcare to meet. But I think what's really cool is this is the first time that social media and healthcare have really, in a tangible way, met. Yep. And what gets me excited about keep going is I don't know where it'll go. Like, I'm just excited to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Kind of the ground floor of, basically the new, what, people call millennials living on their phone, whatever, that's a whole other topic, but it's just a different outlet. It's not any better or any worse. But, that people are actually using that to shop for healthcare. And so I think that's, to me, it kind of blew my mind, but it was also super exciting, super humbling to even be in kind of the world that people are asking for advice on that. And so I guess if anything, that just keeps me more focused on what I want my brand to be, what I want the purpose of that page to be. And for me, it's kind of more than just a social media page. It's an outlet where, obviously people are searching for like answers to real problems.
Yeah.
And so, not to, make it too profound, and I don't want to oversimplify it either, but like it's a pretty cool thing to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you rewind 15 years ago, or even 20 years ago, people wouldn't even think that email and the internet, you would use that for healthcare. And now, I'm walking into a doctor's office, it's just an iPad, I'm filling everything out,
Yeah.
and it's just that technology is there. And I think people have a similar, feeling about social media. Is like, oh, it's just where you get content, but you're not actually getting solutions and stuff. But I think that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we can't even predict what social media or the next thing will integrate into that. And it's cool that you're getting ready for whatever it is,
Right.
Whether it's 5 years, whether it's 10 years, you're kind of living in that world. Social media is the world that we live in. Social media is the email 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you said, no, I don't prefer email because it's, you have to go on your computer, you have to be sitting at a desk to send email, et cetera,
Right.
Then you were left out. But if you
Yeah.
said, this email thing, I'm going to find a way to take and make payments through email, right, PayPal, then you're going to make a lot of money, and then you're going to be in the right place to succeed and make a big impact. So kind of got a little more into philosophical. Wrapping up, I want to get a little more into a few technical things, if you don't mind. So talk about hashtags, like Instagram specifically. Talk about your use of hashtags, what you've learned, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think at a certain point, early on especially, they're very important. I think as the pages get bigger, it becomes a little less important, but also, it still plays a role. I think the biggest thing, and a few, like, I guess, technical nuts and bolts of it is when you're looking for hashtags, one, it's got to be relevant to the content you're putting out. If I'm doing a physical therapy related hip mobility post, physical therapy and hip mobility should be two hashtags that I use, right? But what I don't want to use is hashtag FitFam, that's got 2.8 million posts in it. So as soon as you post it, especially at a smaller account, you post that and under hashtag let's go leg day or whatever, and it's like 3 million people are posting into that. Yours is going to be gone within 2 seconds. So there's that hashtag. You can follow hashtags, and there's popular posts, which are the top 9 or that have the most interaction, most engagement, that type of thing. It's usually bigger accounts that are going to be on those. So if you're a smaller account, hard to get in there, but you can come up on that explore page. And so if you're and that's where it's still chronological based on time. If you pick the right hashtags where there's 2,000 to 25,000, someone's not posting one every second. So the chances of you being seen as a smaller account are higher in those hashtags. So early on, very important to pick the right ones. Go to those hashtags, look at the posts. If someone's going to follow or look up that hashtag, is your content something that's going to draw their eye, or is it something completely unrelated they're going to go through? So now it's more quality over quantity. Pick the right ones more so than I think they let you have 30 that you can post. Don't worry so much about posting 30. Just pick, maybe if it's 15 to 20 ones that are just like right up your alley. That's gonna be more important. And I think as you get into a bigger account, your follower base, it's already organically going to see your post and then tag other people in it. So it kind of organically shares itself at a certain point, but you have to build up to that momentum using hashtags.
So what advice would you have for somebody who wants to start living in this social world, wants to start living in this Instagram world? What advice would you have? I think probably the most important advice that I've heard so far is your intention behind why you're doing it. So I think that's a really, really big one. But what are some other pieces of advice that you would have?
Yeah, I think as I was getting started, I listened, listen to other podcasts and read books and stuff. And Tim Ferriss is one I'm a fan of, and he had a guest on who was answering some questions, and someone asked him, about like starting a business. Do we overcomplicate it? Does it have, can it be easier or more simple than it can be? And so I think something that hit home for me as far as like understanding what I'm doing was he made the point to say, simple and easy aren't the same thing, and like we try and make those two correlated when, and he used the example of running. So running is simple, but it's not easy. So if you ask someone who likes to run, then you just get up and go for a run. But if you ask someone who doesn't enjoy running, you have to wake up early, you have to put on your shoes, you have to stretch, then you have to warm up, then you have to run. So there's always more steps to it. You get overwhelmed, there's more reasons to not do it. And so simple and easy, and if you ask, and his other example was an ultra marathon is simple, but it's not easy. You just run for a long, long, long time. It's not easy. So I think that understanding that about kind of the nature of what I'm doing, I think knowing that on the front end, kind of the early stages, was really helpful. Knowing that, yes, it's just about, it's social media, it's Instagram. It's like, you're just posting stuff on social media, and, it's like, it's not super complex. Yes, there's a ton of back end steps, that you realize that can kind of drown you if you don't kind of know what you're getting into. Yeah. But I think like you said, just knowing your end game and having the passion for it, it kind of makes it to where, I guess, that response to, if you enjoy running, you just run. So for me, the answer is out of the abundance of stuff that you like to talk about, the stuff that you've continued to learn, just post about it. That those thoughts should be coming up in your head all the time, right? And you post it, and you get feedback, and this didn't do well, this did well. How can you stay true to yourself but also adapt to what people want to hear? And so it really is that easy, but it's also not simple. And so I think there's a lot of steps. So I guess knowing what you're getting into, and I think that's where this world has become it's easy to enter into, it's hard to succeed. There's a lot of businesses like that. I did personal training before this. Personal training is one of those. It's very easy to get into the field. It's hard to be successful in it. Yeah. And anything where you can anybody can create an Instagram account and start posting stuff. But I guess knowing that it's going to be a grind, there's no overnight success. If someone found my page and they see I've done a couple hundred posts and 26,000 followers, then they're going to be like, oh, you just posted some things on there and a bunch of people came to you, and it's like, no, this was weekends and days off of hours and hours posting, trying to get better, like a lot of intention. So it's a grind, and if you don't have the right intentions and like the passion behind it, you're going to be done in a month. Yeah. And so I think that's just the important thing to know. And if it's not something you're passionate about, it doesn't really just like almost make it hard to go to sleep and wake you up in the morning, it's not going to be a realistic possibility. And so anybody can do it, but it's not easy.
Yeah. No, that's really insightful. Thanks so much for joining me today. This has been really insightful. So if people want to go check you out on Instagram and stuff like that, where do they go?
Yeah, I'm at the PT Initiative. That's my handle. I also have a website, theptinitiative.com. So right now, you can go on there and it's a free resource. It's an ebook for shoulder mobility. It's kind of a way you can kind of look at your shoulder mobility and enhance like rotator cuff strength and overhead stability and things like that. So good resource if you want to check it out totally for free on my website. So theptinitiative.com and the PT Initiative on Instagram. That's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you got next in store, and when you maybe we'll have you back on in a couple months and get some more wisdom from you.
Cool. Thanks. I've really enjoyed being on, so thanks for having me.
Cool. Thanks, man.